folks, welcome back. Today we're going to be tying the olive woolly bugger, an extremely versatile fly for numerous reasons. So number one, it's a great pattern to learn to tie if you're a beginner tyer. Number two, they just flat out catch fish. So it's kind of a killer combo, right? You're just starting to tie flies. You want something that's not too crazy difficult, but you also want that thrill of catching your first your first fish with the first fly or first couple flies that you've ever tied. There is no better feeling. So the olive woolly bugger, you can do again like all patterns and variations. Do it in different sizes, different color beads. You can see in this one I have an orange, but the majority of it is olive. So I have an olive marabou tail, olive hackle. And I do switch it up. I'll add some weight, some not weighted, different color beads, gold beads, matte black beads as well. Go nuts. Figure out what works for you in your body of water. And yeah, tie some of these bad boys up. I'll often have an entire fly box full of different woolly buggers, different sizes, colors, shapes, like I said. And there are obviously the fly fishing enthusiasts out there that kind of bash this fly because it's not really a fly. But in my opinion, if you tie it, it's on a hook, you're putting some fake feathers on it, that's a fly. So let's get started. In the vise, I have this is a size 10 streamer hook, and that's accompanied by a 3.8 millimeter Chartreuse tungsten bead. I love the tungsten bead because when they start to drop in the water, they'll actually, let me grab this example again, they'll actually travel like on a dead drift, almost up and down like this. But with the tungsten bead and your line attached to it, when you start to retrieve it or strip it back, it's gonna have this jerky motion where it's gonna kind of like kick forward and straighten out and really give it some nice funky movement. So that's why I like to do it that way. So yeah, that's my tungsten bead. I'm just going to be using some black 70 denier, and we're going to get started. We're going to keep this super simple. These don't need to be overly complicated, or they can be complicated. There's a ton of ways to tie these flies. But I like to have this sort of that in between of easy, quick, and then a little bit, still want to take a ton of pride in it. So I will take my time and do things a certain way. I think like every fly tyer out there, you're going to develop your own sort of style and preferences. So I'm just working my way back just before the bend of the hook. We're going to grab some of this wonderful material, the olive marabou. The movement in this, I don't know, it's just amazing. I love it. I don't know why I just tried to smell that. So I'm just going to prep this quickly here. And again, the lengths can vary. Whether you want to use your hook shank as the gauge, that looks fine to me there. I'm going to pinch wrap this right on top. So this is one way to tie it in. I can now twist and cut it off. Davey McPhail had this amazing tip, and I think it's changed my woolly bugger game even more, right? Just when you think that you've know how to finish tying a specific pattern, you continue learning and watching, taking notes from the masters, and you learn something new. And that's what is just the best part about fly tying, is that you're kind of always learning. So what I've done is I've actually pre-nipped it off, and like Davey says, you can now strip away with your fingernail all this little fuzz. what that does is just clean up those stems. So when you bind that down, look how nice and flat that starts to lay. So again, just continue educating yourselves. There's so many great tips and there's so many great tires out there. I just continue to learn, just like a sponge, which makes this hobby and sport that much more magical. Okay, so that I'm in there with my base, nice fluffy tail. Next up, we're gonna grab some Flashabou. Again, get creative. Put as much flash as you want or as little flash as you want. I don't like too much flash, so I'll grab 2 strands. And then you'll notice sometimes strands, they too, like feathers, have natural curvatures, right? So I just pluck this off of I nip this off of the stem there, and you can see, look at the way it's trying to curve. Well, I don't want that on my tail like that, right? Or like this. So I will always kind of play to the natural curvature of materials when possible. So now that I have them, you can see now they're both coming inward. So I'm going to tie this on the near side of the fly so that it's facing me. So it's going to curve in towards the feathers, into the marabou. And again, that's just my personal preference. I'm sure there's people going to be like, they don't care. Fish don't care. You're making it too difficult. If you watched any of my other videos, I'm all about fishing with confidence. And this is one of those things that gives me that confidence. Okay, and the one thing I'm going to be doing is always kind of consistently going back and forth with my thread, building a even foundation of thread so that when I start to wrap my body, it's nice and even. When you have all the ups and downs and the bumps, it makes it difficult. So I'm going to nip these various lengths. When they're the same length, they tend to like stick together once they get wet, and I don't want that. All right, so now I'm gonna be tying in some 6X tippet, and this is just to help reinforce the hackle, pretty much one of the last stages of this fly, so that when you get those fish bites, the teeth of the fish aren't ripping apart your fly. So this is just for added durability. And again, a lot of ways to tie all flies and the woolly bugger. So maybe not a full requirement, but I like to. Next up, we're ready for the body. And for this, I just got some packages of these. These are the Rayon chenille. So like normal chenille, but they are super soft, suede-like, very spongy. So they look great. They tie on the fly fantastic. And I can only imagine once they get wet how much water they truly absorb. So I just cut off like a 3 or 4 inch strip, which is like a card, I guess a full card unravel. And I'm just gonna tie that in here, right up next to that tail. just going to even out my body now. There's another, I guess, more advanced technique in where I tie my woolly buggers. It does take a bit more time, but maybe I'll save that for another video. All right, so that's not bad. I mean, there's a few little bumps. I don't even know if they're gonna show up on camera or not, but they're enough to drive me a little crazy. But let's move on. And we're just gonna wrap this wonderfully soft chenille. And this is why I kind of like this. I find this Rayon chenille is a bit more, I guess, forgiving, because it's very spongy and very, it will hide some imperfections, and just kind of, kind of make it all even looking. So if you have a rotary function, you can use that to make this process easier. I do have a rotary function, and sometimes I will use it, but I find just for these tutorials, it's nicer to keep the camera steady, and understanding that not everybody has a rotary vise, right? So especially when you're beginning. I mean, I didn't have a rotary vise when I first started. All right, we're gonna nip off that tag end. And now we're ready for our hackle. For the hackle, I'm using the Whiting Farms 100 packs. This is a size 12. So one size smaller than the size of hook. And this is the Grizzly Dark Olive. So this is awesome stuff. You've probably heard me preach about this in other videos. So I'm just freeing up some fibers off the stem here. Now I'm going to tie that on. So I got 2 in front. In the back, and that's nice and secured in. Got a small little stem, just gonna cut out there. And now what I'll do is I'll do 2 to 3 wraps right behind the bead. So what I will do is I'll go right up next to that bead. So one right behind, like I'm pushing up against it. And then I'll do one just behind there as well. I'll take a quick look to see how it looks. And if I think it's thick enough, then I'll start going down the hook shank. So I'm just doing kind of evenly spaced wraps. This band-aid on my thumb is not making things easier. And now I'm still holding it in my fingers, the hackle, and on my other hand I'm grabbing that 6X tippet what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture it like you would with your thread, and you're going to counter wrap. So go in the opposite direction you were going with your hackle. And I'm going to evenly space these out. If you wiggle your way through, that may help you minimize trapping some of the fibers. And you can see again why I'm kind of falling in love with this Rayon chenille, because the counter ribbing is almost invisible, because the Rayon chenille kind of just hides it and sucks it in. So now I'm gonna just capture this tippet. Nip that off. I'm gonna nip off my tag end of my hackle. And now we're literally ready for a whip finish, but I don't want to trap any of those hackle fibers. I don't want them coming forward. So I've done a few securing wraps in there. Now I'm ready to whip finish. Again, sweeping those back. Go. I've got one of these a little too long. It's Flashabou, but that'll do. And then you can just drop some head cement underneath, and you're literally good to go. If you trap some fibers, you can come in with your brush and brush it out. But that, my friends, is an olive woolly bugger. And again, tie them in. Go nuts with the colors, man. I like the traditional gold bead as well. Don't get me wrong. But again, I'll mix it up. I'll have tons of different colors. So you can see in this one, I got the Chartreuse. I have one here with an orange bead. I'm not sure if that's gonna focus properly on camera. I did another one here with a silver bead. Right, so I'm just basically literally filling up my box with just different colors and different styles, different weights, different sizes, but I'm sticking with the olive right now. Later on I'll move on to blacks, maybe pinks, some purples. So go nuts, have fun, get creative. Best of luck on the water, folks. Thanks for watching. Cheers.